Okay, hi everybody. My name is Jaclyn Napoleon. I'm the Director of Graduate Admissions and Recruitment at the Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy. And I have the great honor today to speak with Dr. Brian Greenhill. He is one of our professors in our political science department here at UAlbany. And we want to tell you a little bit about what he does here at Rockefeller, a little bit about his field, and a little bit about some of the courses he teaches. So we'll get started. So, hey, Brian, so tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, Jaclyn. So yeah, I've been at Rockefeller College since 2017. I teach courses here on human rights and environmental politics and international institutions, as well as some of our required methods, the statistical methods courses. And my own research is in the area of human rights and environmental policies too. So I, like most of the faculty, are always looking for ways to kind of tie our own research experiences into the courses that we're designing for our students.
Great. So what was it that sort of brought you to this field? Like, what about your field is the most engaging to you? What are you most passionate about when you think about what you do in your research and how you teach?
So, I mean, I got into this area because I remember feeling when I was a graduate student myself doing my PhD, I wanted to find a research area that I felt would be really important to me, where I could kind of feel that I'm motivated by something that really kind of matters in the world. And human rights violations seemed, like that, exactly that type of thing. But then within that area, I started to get more interested in the way in which countries' membership in international organizations can kind of help to shape the path that these countries develop on in terms of their human rights practices. And that then led to my dissertation work and to various other research projects around that. And more recently, I've kind of been asking similar questions with regard to climate change, and now I'm teaching courses on that topic too.
Great. So what is your favorite course to teach and why?
So my favorite, I would say, I mean, the graduate course that I'm teaching right now that I'm really enjoying is called Global Environment, Politics and Policy, which is one of the courses that's it's actually cross-listed for the MIA program, the PAD program, Public Administration, and the Political Science program. So I have a mix of students from all different backgrounds in that. And in that course, I'm talking really about the politics of climate change. And when I say the politics of climate change, I mean specifically the kind of international politics of climate change, meaning how can we get a bunch of countries all with their own kind of selfish interests to kind of come together and try to cooperate on this problem of climate change, which, as everyone who follows this will know, has proven to be incredibly difficult, but there are still some areas for optimism. And what we look at in the course is, what kind of rays of light are there? What can we take away from some of the kind of successful measures that have been taken so far that could perhaps kind of shine a path towards some kind of solution to that? So it's one that's of interest for people who, are interested in the politics of climate change, but particularly those who like to sort of try to understand how the international system kind of hangs together and what forces are acting on the states that make up the international system.
Okay, so do you have an example of an interesting policy problem or project that the students have had to tackle?
So, yeah, I mean, what I usually ask the students in that class to do is to write a longer paper where they're evaluating the impact of a particular effort to try to deal with an environmental problem at an international level. So for example, I've had students write papers where they say, look at the impact that the C40 Cities program, which is like an alliance of different major cities around the world that have kind of taken it upon themselves to try to deal with climate change at a city level rather than waiting for the federal government or their own national governments to kind of take more decisive action. And so I've had students write papers that try to assess the impact of a program like that, or else other students write papers where they are assessing the impact of a particular, say, corporate initiative to try to deal with an environmental problem, or anything along these lines. So wherever possible, we're trying to kind of tie the theory that we're learning about from international relations theory to kind of real world applications that the students can go out and research themselves.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great example, like you said, of a class where you can have MPA students, MIA students, MA students, and it really fits with all of those programs depending on what their concentration areas are.
Yeah, and I'm always, and I think I can speak for many of my colleagues in that, we always want to have students in our class write papers on topics that are of most interest to them. Mm-hmm. So if we have a student who's, say, pursuing a PhD in political science and is wanting to write a paper on, let's say, environmental justice, which is, something that's maybe doesn't quite fit within that framework I just described in my answer to your last question, then I would be more than happy to kind of work with them on trying to kind of come up with a research paper that allows them to kind of further their progress towards their PhD. So it's, it's in everyone's interest to have the students writing papers on questions that they are most interested in.
Absolutely. That's what ends up advancing research every day. So
yes. Yeah.
What's sort of the most gratifying for you in teaching and researching and, the experience of being a faculty member?
I would say, probably teaching graduate seminars is really one of the kind of best areas of or aspects of our job, because, it's really only when you start teaching something that you fully understand it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of students kind of don't quite appreciate that graduate seminars really are intended to be like a conversation between the faculty member and the students. It's not just a case of us sitting at the front of the classroom, delivering knowledge that we already have. I tell my students to kind of think of our graduate seminars as being like, participating in the book club. We've all done the reading, I've done the reading, they've done the reading, and, we're all bringing our own reactions to it. And it's really great when students help you see something or realize something that you didn't realize beforehand, or, this is where I think that there's just this nice kind of like synergy between teaching and research, where, in the course of teaching a class on a topic, I can come away with ideas for research too that I'm then able to do myself, and hopefully the students are kind of getting more engaged in the issue. So, the best times are really when it feels like we're just having a productive conversation, because, there are very few right or wrong answers to the kinds of questions we're discussing in our class. It's really a case of thinking of the classroom as a kind of collaborative effort towards trying to kind of advance our knowledge in any particular field.
Great. Well, so that's a good segue to the next question of what does a strong student look like for you? Like, when you're looking at your course over all of your courses and you look at the strongest students, what do they bring? What are the things that they contribute to class?
I really think that the strongest students are the ones who have the highest level of kind of intellectual curiosity. They don't necessarily need to be the students who do best in exams or who, have a 4.0 GPA. They're students who are just kind of genuinely interested in wanting to know more about how the world hangs together, and who will ask interesting questions and who kind of enjoy learning stuff, who will kind of like learning about some new topic, or kind of curious about it, want to ask questions about it. And that's what I feel makes for a really good kind of graduate program. Of course, other things are still important too. Like we want students who are kind of self-disciplined and who are able to, keep up with their assignments and be good at communicating and good at responding to feedback. But I would say really the number one thing is the kind of curiosity, because I think if you're a curious student who's asking good questions, then that will carry you a really long way.
Great. So that probably is a good segue to my last question, which is what is a good piece of advice that you would give to a prospective student in really any of the graduate programs?
So I guess I would say to anyone who's considering a graduate program, take your time and make sure that you really think that this graduate program is a good fit for you. I'm always telling undergraduates, you know, you don't necessarily have to rush into graduate school. If you go to graduate school right out of college, or if you wait 2 or 3 years before going to graduate school, that's absolutely fine. I do suggest to students who are entering the program to try to think of graduate school like a job. You know, think of it as you know, you've got a certain amount of time to spend on your assignments, and you want to kind of budget your time as effectively as you can. And you know, stay on top of all the various commitments, because I know a lot of people, myself included, you know, found the transition from like undergrad to graduate school quite tough, you know, especially in that first semester where you're just feeling absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of reading that you're asked to do. So it's a slightly different skill set you need to develop. I think here at Rockefeller, we do a pretty good job of kind of coaching our students through that. And I think we have a really excellent support network for our students, but you know, it definitely is something that you want to make sure you're as kind of fully prepared for as possible, and to, you know, be willing to talk to professors or staff members or anywhere, your fellow students, you know, if you have any concerns that we may be able to help you with.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Brian. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye, Jaclyn.